for the Agile community. www.Agile.FM.
Welcome to another episode of Agile.FM. Today, before we get started with our episode today, I have a quick reminder for everyone to take a look at Agile.FM and subscribe to the newsletter. We're going to start sending out more information via that newsletter about episodes and background information, especially about the one we're going to do today. I have Daniel Lachmann-Nishibane from mt-ag.com. That's the mt-ag.com in Ratingen, Germany. He's an Agile coach there. And what's interesting about Daniel is he participated in a professional Agile leadership training in Munich in February 2019. And we talked a little bit about the course and the podcast. And what we then realized was, why don't we do a little bit of an experience report about the professional Agile leadership? So first and foremost, welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Hello, Joe. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting.
Of course. So this is an interesting thing because you participated in this course, and I think we have to put a little disclaimer out there. You're not being paid for this podcast, and I want you to be as open as possible because I taught the course myself. I have to say this. This is a course from scrum.org, the Professional Agile Leadership Certification course. And so we talked a little bit during this course in Munich, and maybe we do something like this. And then I said, why don't we do a recording like this, but once you took the actual exam? So we didn't do it right after the course, which would be probably better in terms of, hey, reliving the moment of the course. But we said, let's wait until you did the exam. And I actually said, we do this recording once you went through the certification, if you passed or failed. Now, the big question is, did you pass?
Yeah, actually, I shifted it till the last minute before this recording. So I did it yesterday night, and after reading some of the recommended literature, and yeah, I had a good feeling, and it went quite well. I didn't need all of the time there, and it ended up 96.1%, so that was enough.
Wow, congratulations. And what we can now say is, because I ran the metrics this morning before this podcast recording on the 8th of March 2019, I ran the numbers, and you're one of 742 people worldwide now with the leadership certification. Maybe we'll start with that. 200,000 Scrum Masters certified. 200,000, right? 742 Agile Leadership certification. The program is new, yes. But how do you feel about a discrepancy like this? There's obviously a large difference.
Yeah, I think that, speaking from my own experience, lots and lots of people in the IT field just need to have the Scrum Master certification on their CV. Mm-hmm. It's for our own consulting. We are a consulting company for software developing, mostly digital products. And yeah, the clients are just asking, okay, does the person have a Scrum certificate? And actually, it doesn't really matter which Scrum certificate, but the most common one is the Scrum Master one. So everybody has it. Mm-hmm. Actually, at my company, I'm even giving some Scrum Master training classes to the internals, not an official one, to be sure. And yeah, just people ask me which one should I take, and I say, okay, if you're a developer, obviously maybe take the Scrum Developer certificate, but most of them just choose to do the Scrum Master one because it's kind of common. Clients are asking for it. It's the one certificate everybody tries to have to work in an Agile space. That doesn't really mean then that they work as a Scrum Master. They just have some proven knowledge as in the framework.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's interesting here is for me also like it's interesting that the everything in Scrum.org is obviously has some form of an S in it for Scrum. So it's a professional Scrum Master, professional product owner uses the Scrum framework, but in this case it's actually the Agile leadership. There's a big A, the Agile in it. So that's an interesting thing where it's more about the mindset, etc. Now, there was one thing I got notified through Scrum.org, and that is that you went on Trustpilot.com and you left a little bit of a review, which is great. Very good review. And one of the things you mentioned there was that you enjoyed the games, the facilitation techniques and the training, and that and how they could be applied to Agile leaders. Just maybe just from your own perspective, you wrote this and we're happy about this, obviously, but just maybe for the listeners out there, without going into the details of the techniques, but how do you think these facilitation techniques and things we have seen in the training could be applied to leaders out there? How could this be useful? How could you be, especially the games, where there were some games in it as well. How can you translate that learning environment into an actual environment for possibly future or current Agile leaders? Any thoughts?
Sure. So I guess leaders, be it managers or so managers in terms of being a boss of a group of persons, or be leaders in terms of how you say, a product owner is also like in that product field, a kind of a knowledge leader, or a scrum master in informal leadership positions. They tend to be in a position where they, in a meeting with a room full of people, and try to facilitate the conversation. And sometimes, the sender and the recipient of the messages, they by just talking, the right message could not really transfer. So I guess that if you use some game techniques and make it a bit more tangible, so make this, like this gaming is kind of you feel it really with your body. You get these aha moments, like when we are building that bridge, and I say, okay, right. I mean, what. This message comes across on a deeper level than you could just you could just put a PowerPoint, explain pictures, but then again different people interpret it in a different way. So sometimes maybe it is worthwhile to invest the time and make it a game, make it an interactive thing with the group. Of course, not every group of people that's really is so open to try out this gaming thing. I've made different experiences. Some say, gaming, what do you want? This is for children. So maybe you get some comments like that. But
of course, I've seen it all.
I tried it with also this kind of groups, and in the end. It was it got some praisal and people actually enjoyed it. So
what's interesting about your comment is also like this was an open enrollment course you participated in. We had like a full sellout, right? The room was packed with individuals among a few that came in pairs. Pretty much nobody really knew each other, and dynamics really changed for me from a facilitator's perspective quite drastically. Like once we started with these kind of facilitated exercises where people warmed up and had a very different relationship with each other, and it was interesting what was very stiff and possibly a little bit cold in the first minutes of the course ended to handshakes and exchange of business cards by the end of the training, which is fantastic, right? So people stay in touch with each other. For me as an instructor, just want to also for listeners out there, it's also important that these facilitated things are important for leaders to see. Like, hey, if you want to walk into a meeting room here and there around the world, and it's, as you just said, PowerPoint, somebody's presenting and people are disengaged. It doesn't have to be like this, right? So there could be, there are ways of making these kind of things more engaging and interesting and fun. And who doesn't want to be in a fun environment, right? Now, there's another review, and I want to talk a little bit about these things because that's important, is on Trustpilot. Somebody else from this course, right? I'm just going to take this and said, like, here was cool, impact, overview of agile methods, agile mindset, and agile leadership. Lots of eye-opening practical exercises. You just said aha moments. And I just want to use that here as an example for eye-opening. Obviously, this is not your statement yourself, but what kind of aha moments, what kind of things do you feel like that training carried, where you feel like that was interesting, an aha moment, eye-opening, anything that stood out of this training where you feel like that is applicable for others?
Yeah, one was this walk away from the done work. I made a note.
Yeah.
I made some note during the course, and I used this technique from you with it, aha, do it, explore things. And yeah, this walk away from the done work was something that my group in that game of building the bridge actually didn't do. We built actually the product that was enough, but then we felt kind of, okay, we got this task here. Let's sugarcoat it a bit or let's use all the material because we thought, it's a bit this. Even if it was done, we could, and it was simple enough, and it was fulfilling requirements. Somehow, there's this fear of being ready to or having it done too early or. Just do a bit more on it, just to be on the safe side, and that's it's interesting to experience. So when I'm an agile leader, scrum master, or manager, I often criticize the groups of people. Why do you over-engineer these things? But that's then, right. If you experience it yourself and you say, okay, this is just a human thing to do. When you think, I'm done.
Yeah.
Great, but okay, maybe that was too easy. Let's do it a bit more. Even so, yeah, that was one aha.
Yeah,
and when we were talking about team building, when you have a large problem to solve, so I say like I don't know, and I say you have so and so many people, you want to build. Teams to build a product from various teams, and he said, okay, how can that be done in a self-organized way? And obviously, as agile leaders, we have some things in mind, like cross-functional,
right.
And other things. But you say, okay, maybe just give them as least amount of rules as needed. So don't define too many rules. Leave them a bit to find it out for themselves, and then just ask questions. Why did you choose this or that way? And why asking questions? The group comes to some. They make it their own findings, and again, maybe this brings out the right solution. Yeah. So it's kind of
these are the aha moments. Yeah, we have seen the over engineering part. The first aha you just mentioned, right? That's a typical thing. We have seen over engineered products or features that have been created that never went to market because competitors just bypassed the idea, had something, and we have many examples in the world where the product that sounded less promising in the beginning actually took the biggest market share. So that is very interesting. Now I want you to ask you about something. Obviously, I do not want to reveal the name of a participant, but in full transparency here. So there was one person who did not like the training, and there was somebody who spoke with me after the training. Somebody said this was not about leadership. Now, what we see here is a very big discrepancy of a ton of people. And by the way, I'm seeing this quite a bit, especially when you go through agile trainings. There's a large number of people that say engaging, eye-opening, aha, 5 stars on Trustpilot or 10 on our internal review sheets, etc. And then somebody who is just responding not to the course in the way we would like to see. Obviously, that's disappointing for me. But on the other side, how do you explain a discrepancy, and what do you think is an expectation level of some people in regards to this training?
Yeah, about that comment, I could imagine the person had a certain mindset and he had a certain expectation about, maybe like really more concrete solutions to, or kind of what do I need to
like a
do
checklist.
to that the agile teams, or what do I, maybe more kind of a manager's guide to how to deal with these scrum teams or agile teams, whatever, or they kind of leadership by its word is there, it's ambiguous, right? So we can or I have read different definitions of leadership, or kind of in certain literature it's defined in different ways. So kind of for me leadership
term,
for me leadership is something you cannot leadership. It's kind of not your own choice, but it's a group decision. So if somebody is a leader, when a group of persons thinks that he is a leader because they respect him and they kind of listening to that person because they think, okay, he does something for us. He's somebody we respect and we want to follow. That's kind of he takes that responsibility and is kind of trying to help that group in the form of a leader. But of course there are managers that are leaders and there are managers that are no leaders, and
it does reflect back in the rating of the course. And I think one thing you're pointing out is maybe just to bring the listeners in, was a scenario where we had several almost like a case study kind of learning approach, where we had several short situations participants like you had to react to. And I think the hard lesson here was that there is exactly not what you're just describing, right? There is not this checklist. There is not this manager's guide for solving problems. There is not the book out there who says, here's the path you need to take. And maybe it's a hard lesson in the training. I will obviously follow up with everyone about these kind of things, and obviously hope that everybody takes advantage of the exam and passes that. Now, towards our end of our conversation, obviously, do you have any recommendations for the listeners out there about agile leadership, the course, the approach you took, the exam? There's a practice exam on scrum.org. I always pointed out this is probably a little bit easier than the actual exam. I don't know if you share that kind of assessment, but what kind of recommendations do you have for people who are not part of these 742 people right now who have that credential of a professional agile leader?
Yeah, I guess just taking the course and then taking the practice exam is fine. You could probably pass the test. What helped me personally, that in the 2 years before I took that course, I've been working in the field as a Scrum Master. I've been looking into different things, like for example, Management 3.0. It's a book, but it's also becoming a facilitation technique. So I actually took a also training in that way. I looked into the thing called the DevOps. Is it not the technical part, the the culture behind it that makes collaboration, people solving, and for example, books like the Phoenix Project. There's a whole kind of mindsets behind these things about being an agile leader, or being someone who is not command and control oriented, but tries to help groups to become self-organized, problem-solving, teams that, and at the same time, these things that there are, of course, certain boundaries and rules that the teams are there in a certain context, that certain rules and boundaries are given, but there's also then a manager's or leader's jobs to kind of show them the solution space and let them actually trust. That's right, about the thing about trust and don't blame. There's no blame culture.
Yeah.
This is something I took from this DevOps literature, like, from Gene Kim and so on. And then I think if you read into all these kinds of things, you get, it's all like a big puzzle that falls together. And I think, Agile is kind of the overarching theme, and below that you have, they have Scrum frameworks, you have DevOps things, and a lot of things that kind of fit together very well. And if you probably leaders should, if you want to work there's no thing such as, there's no job position called leader, right?
That's right, yeah.
But if you're kind of in a position that is in the context of leadership and agile within an organization that wants to become agile or is agile, then I guess this course can really help you to and also the test can to check if your mindset's actually
if you're on the same page here,
fitting,
right?
And if you and you can get some ideas, and you learn that you can't really solutionize this thing. That was one of the hard things. You said you can't solutionize complex problems, and I said, okay. Obviously, there is no checklist A, B, C, and D to do, and then I can lead an agile team. But it's always a complex thing, and you have to,
when you put people into the mix, it's by definition complex, right?
You have to, inspection, adaptation, and so on, and then transparency is so important, that the team is being transparent with you as a leader, and that you as a leader are transparent with the team, for example. And I kind of, so I guess, so if you just take this course without any context, without any prior experience, have no idea about Scrum, and it didn't read anything about Agile, then I guess the questions in the test, you would probably choose different answers, because with a different mindset, the answers, they seem to be what seem to be the right answers in a different mindset are actually the wrong answers in the mindset that we are trying to.
Exactly. So that's the shift, right, in the thinking when applying this. So what I'm hearing from you is, in terms of advice, it's obviously an experience as a Scrum Master in the past, but also besides Scrum, also looking a little bit outside of the box into other things, processes and techniques, DevOps, Management 3.0, you mentioned, etc., books that just complement the thinking. Now, we talked a little bit about the past. We talked about the last 2 weeks. We had the training. You took the certification. Let's just finish it up, and let's talk a little bit about the near future. What are you going to do with the certificate, and what's next on your list?
Yeah, so what I learned in the course is actually I want to apply it for coaching my own. I mean, in my own organization, my managers and the board in my organization, they also have the ambition to become more agile, but there are certain conditions that are actually hindering it a bit, and I'm just I'm a person can really advise them from a coaching perspective, help them. And then again, I go to my client. I work there as a Scrum Master with the teams, and at times when I think, okay, I have to stop myself. I'm not the manager of them. I see certain things that are actually they're probably doing it wrong, or kind of. One example I told you about the code coverage. They don't respect it. The continuous code quality, they're actually not doing as I think they should probably do it, but I'm not. I should not just say, hey, command and control, you have to do it differently. I need to facilitate a bit more. I need to try to do it the agile way as a leader, and that's sometimes like yourself, you're a recovering waterfall. Myself too. I started my career also 2 years long in these kind of waterfall things, and certain things are also from the history in the from your background when you go to school and go to society. So certain things in your mind are kind of still in the old scheme and then when I work with as a Scrum Master with the teams, sometimes I have to take a step back and think, okay, this was probably not the agile leadership way. This was probably kind of a behavior, a fallback.
Fall back into old behavior. Yeah. Well, that's a challenge, right, for us to do this. What I do want to say, and this is like a shameless kind of introduction here of a program. So we are like after the Professional Agile Leadership Program, we're in the process of releasing a management leadership circles, learning circles to continue the journey of agility and on the leadership level. And because you have a training like this and you start thinking differently, and you might be taking these ideas into your organization, but new things are popping up, new things that you might feel like, well, you know what, it would be great to have a segment of that in a course or this, and you will probably never find a course off the shelf that really touches on all these kind of things. So there is something in the making which we call the learning circles, and those are the circles to continue the dialogue with people that have went through the leadership training, right? So that's like the foundation, the essentials of it, and then building based on that. So there's a little bit of an outlook to the journey doesn't end here, and I'll probably approach you about that at some point. I want to say thank you for obviously participating in the course. Congratulations to passing the exam, but most importantly, obviously sharing your insights with the listeners out there on Agile.FM. If they are evaluating possibly this training, they say, how could this be useful, applicable in my environment? They got some really good insights from you. So thanks for taking the time for doing this.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you as well. Looking forward to the new contents.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Agile.FM, the radio for the Agile community. I'm your host, Joe Krebs. If you're interested in more programming and additional podcasts, please go to www.agile.fm. Talk to you soon.